After a few days of not getting shot at, you begin to feel acclimated to the town. It is then a simple thing to head on over to see Jeff Donner about that tannery business. You wait outside the blood-scented shack while he finishes with a bit of butchery. The man provides an entire town with flank cuts and ribs, not to mention skins for the tannery and whatever the bones get used for. Donner emerges from the narrow doorway. With a steady sweep, he wipes blood-slicked hands on a darkened leather apron. Glad you came. Have to say, I'm a mite surprised. I know you talked with Preston, and that man has some peculiar preferences. What exactly do you mean? That's what I call it. The man wants things just so very tidy, Donner explains as he heads for the trough outside. But I don't imagine you're here for that. Donner dunks his hands in a water trough that turns red almost instantly. Watching his powerful frame lift and dump out the immense weight of water, you have no doubt that if he had a problem in town, he could probably throttle it until that problem went away. Unless it was a horse, and maybe even then. Did I mention the Winthrops? They're tanners on the south side of town. We do business together plenty of times, but they're always looking to pull one over on me. As of late, they've decided that the best way to do that is to seed rumors all around town. Vile rumors, he says, then shakes his big head and gives a resigned sigh. They say I've been fouling the river, that it went all nasty on account of me. Now any damn fool who steps outside of town and walks upriver can see the whole stretch of it is like that, but plenty of people don't bother to look and just take their word for it. Mainly because the Winthrops pay for their drinks. I don't rightly know what you can do about it. If you could make it rain and flush the river, that would be great. If you could talk to the Winthrops and get them to back off, that would be fine. If you head upriver, see if some damn beaver or something has stuffed the flow, well, that'd do nicely too. Yeah, I'll see if there are beavers or some such thing to clear out. Yeah, them Winthrops don't seem inclined to stop, Donner agrees, but maybe the river will be more forgiving. It is therefore time to take a ride. Yes, Dan Schmidt might indeed be a good person to take along with us. It doesn't take long to find Schmidt, and when you do, he's hip-deep in muddy water with prospecting pan in hand. He blinks a bleary eye as you approach and rubs thoughtfully at a bristle of a beard. Is that you, Calamity? He asks hesitantly before he breaks into a smile. It is. What brings you by? You lay it all out for him as he clambers out of the deep water, swirls the pan about in the shallows. As the tail finishes up, he inspects the tiny gold flakes found at the edge of the residue. Upriver, beaver hunting and whatnot, Schmidt asks. Course I'll go. It'd be a good change of pace. It takes only a little while for the old prospector to saddle back up and with laden mule in tow, begin the journey north and east to where the river flows from. The ride north takes days. Thankfully, the river proves easy enough to follow. The tributaries are drying out to the point of being muck instead of mud, and so there is nothing to distract you from the proper course. Even with the gentle jostle of the horse, your packing twine-sewn wound appears to have been healed nicely. You can't help but hope that this gift stays that way. Schmidt leads the way along the turgid river. Silence might as well be a foreign country zone, especially when the sun begins to set and to do if you pitch camp. The man seems to always have a tale to tell. Sure, let's ask a bit. Actually, more tales about bears is probably a good thing to start with. I could go on for days, Schmidt chuckles, then absently shifts a long and narrow blade that rides on his hip. The most important thing to remember is that unless there are cops about, or they're in ruts, or they're looking to chow down before winter, a bear won't give you two tucks. It doesn't want to, not unless you're easy meat, so don't invite it over. Bandage your wounds tight, because they can smell blood a long way off, and if you see one coming at you... well, it depends on the bear. Shoot it dead? It just takes one shot if you do it right, Schmidt admits, but then reconsiders. Of course it take one too many if you do it wrong. If you got a shotgun, that might do if you wait for it to get nice and close. If a pistol, you better go for the head and pray. Aren't bears' heads relatively hard? Isn't it better to aim for like a bear's heart than for a bear's head? Survival and gunfighting increased. At last the river becomes a constant stream of cloudy water that steadily carves its way through a muddy trench. Instead of parched browns, grass and trees add a bit of green along the banks. Indeed, at one bend in the river you find a bevy of thick bushes heavy with pure white flowers and lush red fruit. Thimbleberries, the distant and delicious cousin of eastern raspberries. Those are delicious, Schmidt notes, then casts a glance around. Guess we're lucky that nothing gobbled them first. The berry bushes shift tantalizingly in an unseen lust of breeze. Wait. The unseen breeze continues to ripple through the flowers and leaves of the berry bushes. A soft smack and slurp reaches your ears, but your horse isn't chewing on anything. Then something big and brown rises up from amidst the thimbleberries. A grizzly bear with more than a smattering of dark juice along its jaw. Tentatively, it sniffs the air. Now what was it about grizzly bears? I think grizzly bears was run for your life. The massive grizzly bear turns as the sudden movement draws its eye, but by then you're already headed off and away. The bear idly wipes at its nose, drops back down, and continues its berry-laden feast. Schmidt follows after you and casts a last glance over his shoulder as you leave both the bushes and the bear behind. "We got lucky," he says after a long moment. "Ain't nothing wrong with that." Before long, you're riding into a brisk evening wind and looking to make camp for the evening. That bear was scary, and I can use that. I'm going to click that mostly because I'm curious on what I mean. Intimidate increased. Okay, sure. Dawn breaks as you ride north along the river. It is an uneasy time given that brush with the bear and all. You shudder to think what would have happened if you weren't able to escape. As you near a particularly sharp bend in the river at the base of the foothill, Schmidt glances down at the still turgid waters, then shakes his head. "Look at that. There's all sorts of gravel and such in the water. Much more than you'd see even after a flood." Even as you consider a reply, you see an answer in the nearby foothills. Some kind of walled camp. Below the camp lies a crude bulwark dam that pulls the river's flow and diverts it to mining. Hydraulic mining, at least according to what Schmidt has said. Hundreds, if not thousands, of gallons of water spray down a hillside, cull loose tons of dirt and rock that slurry down waiting sluices below. There a dozen men tend screens that let the lighter parts of the things pass, but trap the heavy sorts behind. They're hunting for silver or gold, and they're diverting the river's flow to do it. "I bet they're washing in a day would take me months," Schmidt says sourly. "And they're chewing up hills and stopping a river to do it." Well, watching a while is always good. You observe the men go about their work. Much of it involves directing the spray toward fresh parts of the hillside and the maneuver of those screens to sort the resulting flow. Once those are in place, those down below readily pluck bits of the laggardly gold up and place them into sacks at regular intervals. Just like placer mining, but on an immense scale with pumps and pressure to chew away a ton after ton of gravel. Then you see a figure shift atop the hill, a man with a rifle who watches everything but the work. Clearly there has been some trouble here as of late. We'll head up to the camp, sure. You ride toward the camp. Somewhere up there must be a supervisor who's able to tell you what is going on. The ride up to the mining camp takes you up a well-worn trail. More than a few portions are partially paved with stones sunk in deep where mud had dried. Some turns of the switchbacks have been shored up with wood to keep the earth in place, but even so you can see slashes down the side of the hill where something heavy had fallen down the whole way. The camp itself is surrounded by a 6-foot stockade of logs lined with prickle brush. Periodic loopholes have been carved through to let rifles poke out. Indeed, you catch sight of one of those dark barrels doing just that. "Bet they got hit by the Shoshone," Schmidt says softly to you. "Indians around here have been on the warpath for a while now." Have you met many Indians? "Plenty. Lakota, Cheyenne, Arapaho, Shoshone. Of course, even an actual Indian once. Turns out he was from across the Pacific." Schmidt gives a brief chuckle at the memory. "Here's the thing. I've seen my share of saints and sinners. That split don't stop because it hits a particular color. If anyone tries telling you different, they're selling you a pick and a poke." Yeah, why are they so fired up? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but sure, let Schmidt explain it. "Why do Indians get to whooping? Too many settlers coming in, taking the river land and fencing in the greenest pastures," Schmidt explains. "That makes it hard for an Indian to live like his father did. Then a hungry brave does something stupid, kills a cow or plucks some corn. The settlers grab the first Indian they can find, and it never ends well." A sudden tightness grips your throat as you recall the tug of the hangman's noose. Only on a rare occasion does vigilante justice get served upright. Is it true? The Shoshone have been raiding for a couple of years now, Schmidt explains. Something about a treaty they did or didn't sign. Either way, they've taken up the axe. And if it ain't them, then maybe it's the Cheyenne or Sioux, which would be even worse. Well, let's hope they don't mistake us for them. Schmidt strokes his bearish beard. I got that covered, I think. These people know me. He has a point. Hair like his, they won't mistake him for an Indian. That means you'll at least get to talk a bit before anyone gets shot. Good to know. Let's get on over there. The camp's gate is a simple thing with just a wagon pulled across a gap in the stockade. A big fella sits atop it with a white bandage tight, a partially shaved head and a rifle in hand. He squints over as though expecting to see you vanish as you draw near. What you doing? Lost? He asks with a distinctive Midwestern burr. I'm George, by the way. Who are you again? What is this place? This is the Red Ribbon Mining Camp, he replies. Who is your boss? That'd be the Edmondsons, he replies. How'd you get that bandage? Fixing the dam, it sprung a leak. Have you had trouble with Indians? Yep. Say, I'd like to get inside and I have the feeling you want to let me in. I suppose, George nods. I kind of thought you was just being friendly. He hops down from the wagon and pushes it aside with an ox's sinew. The camp beyond proves to be a strangely tidy thing. The tents are pitches in neat rows, paths have been stumped, and some parts even cobbled with rocks. But the heart of things exceeds all that, for beside a large barn lies a handsome little cabin whose white-painted exterior seems to glow in the sun, while bright flowers line row upon row along the outside in a vibrant rainbow of colours. A woman steps from the shadowed doorway of the cabin into the sunlight, a plump little bird with long brown curls of vibrant hair. She is all but covered from the neck to toe in soft blue calico. Though you would not dare call her soft for those wary eyes watch your approach, and her calloused fingers tap the hilt of a knife that is neatly balanced at her belt. Her stern features break into a smile, though, as she spies Schmidt. Daniel Schmidt! Why, what a pleasant surprise! Please introduce me to your friend. Miss Anya Edmondson, this is Marshal Calamity Smith, Schmidt rattles off, and... Name Smith, Indian fighter. No, I'm the law, that's who. You're the new Marshal Smith? Well, that is provident. She notes, then gestures to a little table set off in the shade. Allow me to summon my husband Randall, and we'll discuss what you want and what we need. I have some questions while we wait, Mrs. Edmondson. Give me a moment, Anya asks, and then beckons over George from the gate. In a low voice she gives out orders to which he nods repeatedly, returns and hoists a red flag bearing a single black stripe. There, things are in motion. Why did you raise that flag? Oh, that is the supper flag, or it had been originally. I would set it up so that the men know that it was time to come for supper. Now I use it whenever I need Randall back here in camp, she explains. Behind her, the red supper flag ripples in the mountain breeze. Huh. How long have you been mining here? In the area? 4 years, since 1864. In this particular spot, only a few months. We go where the gold is, she points out. Schmidt lets his practiced eyes wander the camp. You have any screens for sale? Like as not, Anya answers. Though they will need some cleaning. I'd like to... Oh, sure. Tell me more about the camp first. The camp is part of a mining operation that is run by my husband, Randall, and myself. My father, Edward Dahlgren, Esquire, tends to purely paper matters back in San Francisco, she says. And as you can see, this corporation is a family concern. In the distance, a low thunder can be heard. Yeah, about that dam. That is more my husband's purview than mine, Anya shrugs, and I would prefer if we waited for him before discussing it at length. Suffice to say, it provides us with water for the pumps and sluices. Schmidt methodically sorts through a stack of nearby screens and finds a flaw with each, whether from a worn portion or a cracked frame. Should be able to put 2 of these together into one good one. That is what we would do if our blacksmith hadn't been lost, Anya notes sadly. Why do you call it ribbon mining? She hides a small smile behind her hands. It was my dowry to my husband. When we were married, it came with a red ribbon. I don't get it. You could put a red ribbon on a mining company? Not on the company, no, Anya notes with a hint of amusement. At the gate, George waves to someone well below. The thunder of hooves grows closer. Um, yeah, can you tell me about the Indian attacks? Not really. All I saw were arrows and a tent burning. My husband knows more about them than I. Schmidt sets aside a half-bent screen, steps to your side. How many men do you employ? 19 men and 1 woman, our cook. Most mining establishments have more, and so would we if the Indians had not attacked. At the gate, George hops down and slowly pushes the blocking cart aside. How much gold have you extracted? That would be proprietary information, she indicates pointedly. The supper flag snaps in a freshening breeze. Your stockade seems very stout. It has to be. We have had trouble with Indians raiding, stealing livestock, and setting things afire. Now they try and bushwhack us coming to or from the side. Troubling to say the least. Just beyond the stockade, a horse whinnies amid a clatter of stones. That is all I have to ask. Good. My husband shall be here shortly, I expect, she tells you, and then we can discuss other things. Anya strides out to meet the riders as they trot on into the camp. The man at the lead, a tall fellow with a cap of golden hair, swings down readily to greet her. Despite more than a few mud flecks upon his shirt, she nonetheless eases in close and all but demands a kiss that he readily gives. Only when that is done do they exchange soft whispers and then step toward you. Calamity Smith, I would like you to meet my husband, Randall Edmondson, Anya says with a husky tone. Randall eyes you for a long moment before he extends a hand. Hello, Marshal. Anya claps her hands slightly, then tosses her head toward the lee of the little house amid the flowers. Why don't we discuss things in the shade? Anya pours you another cup of lemonade. Her husband takes a seat opposite you and idly flicks off a bit of dried mud that had stained his shirt. It could always be an idyllic homestead, except for the sprawl of tents beyond the flowers and the jets of water down in the valley. We've been having some troubles. Indian troubles, Anya begins slowly. No doubt you have noticed the stockade. And gun, Randall puts in. Man with gun in hand, not find gold. Are you appealing to the Marshal Service for assistance? We are, Anya says simply. Our mining suffers daily. For every man lost is one too many. Randall leans forward. We have plan. Good plan. We captured one of those barbarians, Anya tells you. We trade. Him for peace. Is good plan, yes? Randall says to finish the thought. You've got an Indian. Here in camp? We shackle, Randall says, then points off toward one of the many tents. How did you capture him? He tried to enter the camp, Anya says. There's something you aren't telling me about that. Randall leans a little closer. He made claims. Claims of our claim. Talk, like dog at moon. You would do well to disregard his lies, Anya adds. Did he struggle? No, is why he live, Randall replies. It is the Christian way, Anya puts in. Of course we could not just let him go or wander around camp. That is why he is restrained. Can he walk? He's in fine shape, Anya tells you. Just a little stiff, I imagine. We feed every day, Randall says. What do the Indians want? Both Edmondsons give an unconvincing shrug. You wait a long moment that grows longer still until at last the pair grows uneasy. At last Anya flicks a glance to her husband. They want us to stop mining. Something about not being able to fish the river. I did not pay much attention to all that Indian talk. We mining by right, Randall says. We have claim, we mine. That is all. Yeah. Talk about the dam. Why you won't talk that? Randall asks pointedly. The dam is not illegal, Anya puts in. Huh. Yeah, I'm afraid the dam must come first. If it breaks, then the waters rush down. Marshal, Anya presses, we can discuss that afterward. As things stand, we shall not talk of it at all. Behind her, Randall nods in full agreement. The two stare over at you in evident expectation and determination. Pull out my gun and get to work. I'll see to the Indian then, but afterward. You'll have our undivided attention, Anya promises. We can still pull out a gun afterwards. Follow, Randall says as he eases off his chair and heads to the back of the camp. It is a short walk through dusty rows of tents, some with blankets or cots while others are stacked high with boxes. One bears a sign emblazoned with a black splash of paint in the shape of a skull. Beyond there, in a dug-down recess, lies many a powder keg. Randall leads you on, halts at one of the smaller tents, and pulls back the flap. Just inside lies a well-made man in a once fine tunic and trousers. A white shirt has been covered in dust, and the torn remnant of a short black tie remains under the collar. His cheekbones could carve stone, while his broad brow is adorned by close-cropped midnight hair, an American Indian, and unmoving. Your guide gives the Indian a swift kick that barely elicits a grunt. Dark eyes flicker open to reveal a penetrating stare as the Indian slowly sits up. Randall gestures to you as he steps away and wipes idly at his boot. Here he is, Marshal. Call when done. But let him not talk of papers and injunctions. Those now gone. Randall, Schmark barks in indignation. How can you treat him like that? My house, my rules, Randall replies. You won't talk more, we go outside and leave Marshal to this. Schmidt mutters under his breath but still exits with the red ribbon owner. The Indian continues to stare up at you as if all else in the world were but clouds and rain. Yahtehe. I don't know what it means, but sure. If that is Navajo, then the greeting is pronounced Ya'ate. And my knowing this does not mean that I am myself. Never mind. It is the thought that counts, the Indian replies, peers into the distance in consideration. For your greeting is more appropriate than you know. My greeting is more appropriate than you know, the Indian repeats. Let us leave that for later, as we have not even exchanged names. You should call me Yiska. All right. Calamity Smith, Yiska repeats. No, those are old names for you, and I would not wish to wear them out. I shall instead call you Tahoma, an appropriate Navajo name, all things considered. What does it mean? Tahoma is a Navajo word. I am very good with their language, and sometimes it just shines out of me, Yiska says and flashes a small smile. As for the meaning, let us wait on that until I know you better. Sure. I'm glad we could come to this arrangement. Yiska nods agreeably. Why don't we stand and talk a while? Yiska pulls up a leg and you hear a rattle from his ankle. There, gripped tight about the flesh, is a thick manacle of black iron. A gift from Admondson's. If I stand, it bites. Thus I do not stand. Tell me of your people. We would be here for days, so let me sum up instead, Yiska answers. I am Newe, the tribe the whites call the Shoshone. We have lived in these valleys since before the white man came to bind us up with those words that made little sense and promises he refused to keep. It starts with the Treaty of 1851, roughly 17 years ago, and I fear I would put both of us to sleep for days were it to continue, Yiska concludes. I need your help with something. I had hoped to hear those very words, Marshal. The law has limits, for they are set by men, Yiska notes. Will the Admondsons abide by the injunction even though they tore it up? Do they wish to negotiate in other ways? I am open to a degree of compromise. Sure. I mean to blow up the dam. That's not a good idea, though. Yeah. Talk to that tribe. The tribe is not what you would want, Yiska points out with a rattle of chain. It is the warband you will be seeking, and yes, I could tell you where they are, but I would much rather show you. Sure. A good choice. My people are like a telegraph operator who has not yet had his coffee. Twitchy and not in a good way, Yiska says as he absently rattles the chain about his ankle. Now then, what are your intentions? Yeah, forge peace and then the miners stop. Yiska quirks an eyebrow. You will convince them? If your mother was a serpent and your father a coyote, I would still not lay odds on that. However, if I did not want to tilt at windmills, then perhaps I should not have studied so hard. With that, he stands tall despite his hobbled ankle. Randall returns with the key and pops the lock off Yiska's ankle manacle. A stream of terse invective follows as the flow of blood returns in full to the Indian lawyer's foot. Schmidt sidles up beside you as the curses roll out. He's definitely got his dander up in Shoshone, but the name Yiska is Navajo. I don't know why he'd be called that. Usually you only see that sort of thing when they're adopted, or else committed a crime so vile that they have to be given a distinctive name to wear. Do you know what it means? Something about the night. My Navajo isn't real good. Schmidt shrugs, but the man does seem familiar all of a sudden. Schmidt returns to the tent with an angry flush about his features. Yiska limps on over to you and then glances at the mountain man at your shoulder. Hello again, Mr. Schmidt. We know each other? Schmidt asks as he peers closely at the Indian. You used to come into our camp and tell stories, Yiska explains. I was younger then, had a different name. Yeah? Yeah. Yiska replies in equal measure. I would say more, but I'm ready to leave. A few minutes later, you're mounted up and riding out of camp with Yiska riding double with Schmidt. And so you ride. Yiska guides you northward once free from the camp, then swings through valleys and around ravines. But there is no sign of an Indian warband, not yet anyway. Come dusk, you gather round a small fire, largely consisting of dry sagebrush. Yiska looks to you thoughtfully. So what brought you out here to Homer? Fortune? Glory? Does any of that matter? I might as well ask why you came back. A fair point, Yiska nods. Back east I was astounded by how people live, especially in a city. At first I asked myself how could they be so soft. Later I asked how could they be so productive. When I finally concluded my studies, I wondered instead how could they be content to never know the vastness of the plains, the grandeur of the mountains, and the beauty of a starlit land. Are we so different? Yes, Yiska says simply. Your history is not my people's history. Your ways are not ours. You bind yourselves with oaths you have never said. He continues on. Modern law is a contract with members of its society. If you want to live within its bounds, you must comply, or else others may force you to comply when you egregiously violate the terms. That is where sheriffs and marshals and then judges and juries come in. It works too, for the most part. Whether that is because certain laws are not enforced or people see the law enforcers as impartial, well, let me put it to you this way. A law specifying the damages a man can claim if someone shoots his ox only comes into play when the aforementioned event occurs. If people are not apt to go about shooting oxen that aren't theirs, then the law is largely unused and so may benignly remain, even if nearly everyone does not know of it. A law that forces men to wear hats and ties out of doors is an onerous one to write and enforce, for many will chafe against it. Far better if social convention and disapproval pressure the individual in such circumstances. Lastly, there are understood laws that are merely codified. Murder, for example, is a heinous thing in any society. Only the most ardent of mountain men, and I apologize if I offend you here, Mr. Schmidt, specifically only the most hardened of killers would protest such a law. Oh, others may protest circumstance or cite defense, but none say there should not be a law when it comes to the slaughter of the innocent. Civilized society desires a legal recourse to such an occurrence, a way to say formally that this kind of conduct is not allowed, and if discovered it shall be punished. Yiska pokes at the fire for a long moment, and the darkness seems to gather within him. Schmidt sighs. And of course the problem with all that is... Laws that span societies are complicated, Yiska says finally, especially when one group imposes their own upon another. Things are taken for granted. Perceptions and customs may not apply. Confusion often reigns, and that is why the Navajo, the Sioux, and Blackfeet get angry. The white men are seen to seek to impose on us what we do not want, what we feel should not apply, and this chases manacles against our very souls, for we have our own laws we would use. You discuss for a time the differences in customs and practices of the Indians and the settlers from both east and west. Legal understanding greatly increased. Where are we at with that? 25%. It's not awful. Morning. The dew lies heavy upon your blankets and slowly seeps in. That makes for an especially wet sunrise as you sit up and blink your eyes. A soft rustle of grass stirs in the air, a sound that should not be there. You leap to your feet and find that Schmidt is already awake. He silently slides his knife out, then gestures across your makeshift camp. There is movement, just a little ways off. 4 figures stalk close. Indians in soft brown tunics and breeches, their moccasins tight about their feet as they approach. They are armed with bows, rifles, and spears, though not a one of those is at the ready. That's the rest of the warband, Yiska says and gives them a wave that is readily returned. Kamerhoit here was just doing as his name suggests. Never walks anywhere but runs or rides to be first. Second man is first loser, Kamerhoit replies pointedly. The little band of Indians grows closer. Yiska confers with Kamerhoit in the Nere tongue, and their words roll like pebbles down the mountain. At last they come to some agreement, and Yiska turns to you. They're willing to help, so long as something is done, he says. Stop trying to blow up the dam. I mean, that is true. While the mining camp stands, the neighbor will suffer. But they might be open for a trade of some kind. Hmm. But what would they do with money? No, while the mining camp stands, they suffer. Yiska sighs. Though we have an injunction, they refuse to comply. Indeed, they tore up the paper and held me hostage for a time. An illegal act they would no doubt repeat or worse. Not that we Navy are fully on the side of the angels here, but we have extended many an olive branch that the Red Ribbon Mining Company has slapped away. The fortified camp is going to be difficult to assail no matter how you approach it. It is a low stockade at only 5 and some feet high, but the ditch before it makes it taller. If you're seen or heard crossing that stretch, then the miners will come out, and from what Iska has said, they have plenty of rifles and gobs of black powder. Their shoulders will shatter before they stop firing. Attacking at night means sneaking in close, easing over the walls, and then fighting the prospectors as best you can, likely hand to hand. Trying during day would be futile, except that you could ambush the bulk of the miners as they head down to their hydraulic hoses. Then all you'd have to deal with would be the few left back in camp. A third way would be to return to the camp and talk your way inside before you open fire. Of course you can't bring more than one of the warband with you, else they'll never let you in. It'd just be you, Yiska, and Schmidt going in, and Schmidt is clearly having second thoughts. I got a lot of friends up there, especially Anya and Randall. I can't go against them, not like this, Schmidt tells you plainly. Many white and Indian will suffer if the river shifts course, Yiska points out. I am certain that Anya and Randall will not only watch it happen, they'll keep mining afterward. There's got to be a better way, Schmidt grumbles under his breath. Sure. Screw it. We're going for the dam. Very true, Yiska considers. If the dam is destroyed, they will have to rebuild or remove themselves. Either way, that gives us time to engineer more opportunities. Yiska explains to the warband members your plans. It takes a bit of doing, but eventually they come around. Especially once you suggest the vulnerability of the dam to the Red Ribbon Mining Company, they must either divert copious amounts of labor to rebuild it or else leave. If only we had a barrel of gunpowder. Yiska muses. I've got a little powder, Schmidt puts in, but the camp itself has got to have a lot more. I might be able to slip in and get some since I know people there. Turning the beast's strength back upon itself, Yiska notes. I like that, Tahoma. That still leaves the question of the approach. Yeah, sure. Schmidt, go and gather it. I know what you're thinking, Schmidt says as he heaves himself atop his horse. That I'm going to be going against friends. Well, it ain't like that. Red Ribbon isn't people and Anya and Randall. They should have picked up stakes a while ago. The worst thing you can do when prospecting is stay too long. It's never worth the time or trouble. He rides off and returns later that same day with a barrel filled with salted fish. Beneath those, however, rests a good layer of black, slightly scaly gunpowder, ready to use if you don't mind the smell. As you prepare to take the powder down to the dam in half a dozen hours, Yiska places a hand upon yours. I should be the one to do this. Your question of that sets a little grin dancing on his lips. I did not only study law at East. It is always good to have more than one plan. He explains cryptically. Sure. Go on. What's our gunpowder? Explosives. 22%. Yep, that's his. You pass over the horns and take up a position at the dam to watch as he drills in and applies the powder. You watch him set to work. He's been through the mill on this, that's for sure. He lights a bit of improvised slow match and races off. Seconds later, the main timber explodes into splinters and great gouts begin to gush through the seams of the dam. You watch as the whole of it comes apart. Timber by timber, piece by piece, it is swept downstream by a return of the river. A mountain of debris and silt washes down across the muddy expanse as the flow resumes. If this had happened after a heavy rain, well, it would have been a flood. Explosives and engineering slightly increased. Soon enough, there's nothing left to see. You and Schmidt move off quick. Anya and Randall will be mad, Schmidt notes, but this is a sight better than what would happen if the Indians kept attacking, or if Preston got a bee in his bonnet after a flooding. The warband prepares to return to the hills to watch and wait to see what the Red Ribbon prospectors will do with their dam destroyed. Yiska rides close. It may take some time, but we shall prevail. May you always find shade, Tahoma. And then, after a parting handshake with Schmidt, they ride off. Partway back to Preston Springs, you see Schmidt cast a glance into the hills and slow his shaggy steed. I can't believe we blew up the dam. No one got hurt, but damn. Let me say this. I'm glad you stood with me through all this calamity. Once I scrounge up some whiskey money, we should have a drink or three. Schmidt flashes you a smile and heads off into the hills. The shadows lengthen over Preston Springs as you ride close. A constant gurgle grows in the air as the muddy flat steadily becomes a river once again. The aches of the trail promise to pass away, and soon. At town's edge lies Jeff Donner's butcher shack. The big man himself, his unusual bloody apron wrapped up tight, can be seen inside. A figure steps out from the shadow of Donner's butcher shack. Sunlight glints of a gold pocket watch, ivory cufflinks, and a sheriff's star. J.T. Preston has come to greet you, and not alone either. From the soft flap of dusters in the wind, at least one of his 4 deputies is just out of sight, and likely armed to the teeth. What do you want, Preston? A nice quiet slice of heaven. Doesn't matter how it gets carved up, so long as it sits on the plate, Preston explains breezily. But that aside, I'd like to discuss what happened at Red Ribbon. The wind shifts a little and sets the wood boards of the nearby building to creaking ever so softly. A tumbleweed rolls past and swirls of dust chase it down the street. He pauses a moment to ease out a cigar and contemplate smoking. I am reliably informed about many things around here. Now do you want to tell me what happened out in the hills? Be brief, I don't need the blow-by-blow, just a fireside version. 2 of Preston's deputies push up from the lee of the butchery and settle in on either side of Preston. This is difficult. He may well be bluffing. Yeah, he's going to tell me what he's heard. You walk on in silence all the way to the bustling steps of the Motherlode Saloon. Just a couple days ago, the river came back to us. Strangely, that's about the same time that the Red Ribbon Mining Company lost its dam. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? He asks with a wry lift of an eyebrow. Somewhere inside the saloon, a guitar strums to life. A raucous chorus rises up, of men looking to wet their throats and others eager to take their gold. Dressed in his finery, Preston looks right at home. Go on, talk. Now, some people around here might ask you to end the Donner and Winthrop feud, Preston begins. See, last year both sides were making plenty of money, but Harry felt that they could all make more money if they came to an arrangement. Not just a contract, but something more permanent. A couple strolls past arm in arm, and Preston tips his hat to them. The Winthrops have family all over, and in particular they've got a sister back in Sacramento, an unmarried sister. Jeff Donner doesn't have a wife. You see how this is going, don't you? He asks. Well, things were moving along swimmingly, with Jeff agreeing and Harry liking how that all sounded. Then Larry did the idiot thing and showed Jeff a tintype of his sister. Now, I won't say she's ugly. Women never really are, but she didn't look too good, and especially not to Jeff. So he backed out of the arrangement, and Harry got pissed off at that. Why haven't you used that? For what? Together they'd be wealthy enough to open a saloon or another hotel. But with them bickering and feuding, they couldn't so much as dig a ditch, Preston points out. I like the way things are, and I aim to keep it that way. Stare at him. But if you were to play peacemaker, they'd owe you a big one, maybe forever. I'll take care of this myself. Yeah, Preston asks. Do it if you want, but don't expect any applause from me. With a flourish, Preston reaches into a pocket and retrieves a big silver coin. You've been working hard. Have a meal, a drink, and a bath on the town. A flick of fingers sends it flipping towards you. Sure. It's a nice big piece of silver, the kind that demands attention, if not respect. Wealth very slightly increased. Preston gives you a satisfied nod. Have a good evening, Marshal. And that's the end of chapter 3. We're not in debt anymore. We've got barely enough for a bed and breakfast. That's good, I guess. We have an unusual bullet scar, do we? I don't remember this. Yiska likes us. So does Preston, so does Caraway, so does Schmidt. None of the people we met hate us yet. That is good. Everything else here is still around 50%. Alright, but that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.